With all that being said, being featured in a prank or a Hoko video or an interview is still a totally different thing than having an intimate consent video published online. It's
Absolutely.
never happened before, and it never will. On May 28th, we tried to introduce these as evidence at trial to show clear examples to the judge of what a consent video is, because that's what we were concerned, that this judge would have no idea what we were talking about. My lawyer even showed one of these videos to the prosecutor, the Crown. After seeing it, he fought even harder to make sure that it was not allowed to be introduced as evidence. The judge then decided not to allow us to use any consent videos as evidence at trial. But
what the fuck? I actually reacted to a video of a younger gentleman who got falsely accused while he was in high school. And the video got nearly 500,000 views, and we sent a ton of support over to his channel. And I'm very proud of that, because many men get falsely accused and a lot of men get falsely convicted every single fucking day. Whether that be the unfairness of our court justice system or any activist judge who has found themselves a way to enact their agenda in the courtroom. Who's really to say what's going on? But I think it's disgusting how many lives that men have that are ruined or completely stripped from them or taken from them every single day over things that they haven't done, even when all of the proof and evidence is on their side. But because someone's feelings were hurt, the judge will take their side. So we're going to watch a video today by Free Jack D called "If You're Reading This, I'm in Prison." This man has 2,000 subscribers. I would love to see how much this would increase after we react to it. Please go support his channel. I have not gotten any spoilers for what this video is or what's happened, but I am going to watch this and hopefully spread awareness if this man was wrongfully convicted or a victim of a false allegation. Let's get into it.
my name's Jack. I'm a content creator, or I used to be, until I had my life torn apart by a false accusation. Since this situation went public, I've received death threats, I've been banned from establishments, all of my YouTube channels have been taken down, I've lost friends, I've lost work opportunities, pretty much everything. I'm innocent, that's all I gotta say, really. Everybody knows I'm innocent. I did not want to have to make this video, but I've been silent on this issue for as long as possible, and enough is enough. My appeal was this month, and I'm waiting on the decision, so I still have to be extremely careful about what I say. My goal with this video is to share what happened in a non-biased way as
I do find it fucking insane how, like, people can use, like, Twitter clips and Twitch clips as a way to convict someone of a crime. Like I shit you not, guys, versus the right judge, you can take like a tweet of you saying that, like, I don't believe that white people, I don't believe that white people are bad, or I don't believe that transgender children exist. That can be used against you in the court of law for a sexual assault case. That's real, by the way, because if you can get the judge to not like you from your tweets, they can convict you. That's what's fucking insane. So this guy pretty much has to say nothing for 3 years just to make sure he doesn't rub the judge the wrong way. Disgusting.
I possibly can. I'm going to try my best not to be emotional and just be completely neutral here and share objective facts and evidence to show my innocence. The timelines of the encounter, inconsistencies in the evidence and testimony, and that there are enough inconsistencies to make you go read the full testimony yourself. Legally, I'm not allowed to say as much as I would like to, but I'm going to do my best to share what I can. Before anything else, I do want to say this. I believe survivors of sexual assaults and false accusations of sexual assaults deserve to be taken seriously and treated with compassion. I've been through both. Nothing I'm about to say is meant to minimize real harm. That being said, let's get into it.
Now, the problem with women who promote false allegations is because it makes it harder to take real victims seriously. That's the problem. So I don't think that this guy has anything against anybody who's sharing a real story, but speaking out against people who are telling fake stories is very hard, because the people are saying, oh, are you minimizing sexual victim trauma? Well, no, right? This guy's life just got fucked over by a fucking liar.
Charged with sexual assault from a consensual encounter between myself and a woman in August 2020. I'll refer to her as the accuser. My legal team and I spent several years going back and forth to get records and evidence to help my case, and we finally went to trial in 2024, and the judge wrongfully convicted me. I say wrongfully as I have always maintained my innocence, and I will explain why in a bit. Based on how things go with my appeal, there are two options. Either the appellate court will order me a new trial, or I'll have to spend 3 years in jail for something I didn't do, and my life is essentially over. And in the meantime, there's been newspaper articles, there's been documentaries, and all kinds of misinformation put out. So now I'm going to go over some information to help you get a better grip of what actually happened. At the time of the incident, I was a YouTuber, actor, filmmaker, and primarily known for pranks. I've been working full-time and earning a living as a content creator since approximately 2016. I met the accuser after matching with her on Tinder. Tinder is an app for people to go and hook up with. I recognized her from one of my party videos, McMaster Hoko 2019. On that day, this person managed to find me and my camera crew in a crowd of 10,000 people in order to be interviewed. After matching on Tinder, we messaged on Instagram, texting and flirting before agreeing to meet up. The accuser drove approximately 30 minutes from Oakville to my house in Hamilton, Ontario. I invited her in, I showed her around, and then she asked for a tour of my YouTube studio. I suggested we should go for a hike. We then left my house and drove to a hiking trail, but upon arriving, it was getting dark, so we agreed to return to my house and watch Netflix and chill. Upon returning to my house, we did just that. We watched Netflix and we had a consensual encounter. I'm not proud to admit this, but at the time, I was sleeping around with a bunch of different women.
Guys, just don't have sex ever again. Just don't have sex. Don't come in anyone. Don't talk to a woman. Don't do any of this shit. They're going to completely obliterate your life. Just don't do it, man. Just masturbate and be alone forever, because who knows when the next crazy bitch is going to try to ruin your life.
User also had multiple different partners recently before me, as per DNA evidence, as well as confirming.
Also, don't sleep around, okay? Like, come on. Don't. Like, you're such a loser, guy or girl, if you're a different chick every day of the week. It's not cool. It's corny. It's just pathetic, bro. Don't be a fucking man whore or a whore in general.
Sleeping with an alleged boyfriend just a few days prior to meeting me. Now, to clarify, this is not a judgment on her character. Rather, it's to provide context on our generation's modern culture of frequent hookups. In retrospect, I definitely should not.
Pathetic modern culture.
Not have been sleeping with these women. But I was a young guy and I was famous on the internet. I would often film a quick consent video when having sexual encounters with strangers that knew I had a large following, as a proactive way to ensure I had clear consent from whoever I was hooking up with, especially women who have been featured in a previous video of mine.
Yeah, imagine if you had consent written before, during, and after, and then the judge still fucks your life. Yeah, unfortunately, saying that you consent during the act, before the act, and after the fact is no longer good enough, because the woman has the ability to change their mind for 10 years after y'all have sex. That's a real thing, by the way. Statute of limitations is 10 fucking years. So, and it does not matter if they consent during. It doesn't matter if they consent before. It doesn't matter if they consent after. They can change their mind. And this guy is facing the repercussions of that. Is that not insane?
This is not a normal way to live, but it is common in society, and especially amongst athletes, celebrities, and public figures. So during our encounter, I attempted to film a consent video, and she informed me that she didn't want to be recorded. So I stopped the recording and deleted whatever was briefly recorded right in front of her. We then continued what we were doing, having a consensual sexual encounter. I want to be very clear here. The encounter was enthusiastic, ongoing. There was no confusion about it. She was consenting, as was I. She communicated consent in many different ways, particularly verbally, asking me to spank her and telling me during sex, fuck daddy, amongst other things. I don't want to repeat them, but you can go and read the things that she said to me in the transcripts. After finishing our encounter, we chatted briefly before I politely told her I had to be up early in the morning, and I asked her to leave. That was the conclusion of the date. Quoting from the court transcript, although the accuser originally told police that she was obviously fine with being asked to leave, her testimony at trial revealed otherwise. In cross-examination, she admitted that the dismissal did not feel good, and she agreed with trial counsel that she felt worthless because she was treated as a conquest or notch on Mr. Densmore's bedpost. So in hindsight, I can absolutely see why this would make her feel bad. She had traveled to see me. She was texting her friends and family about me and our date ahead of time. In particular, some high expectations for me. Kicking her out was rude and dismissive. I didn't think that way at the time, but...
Wow, so some woman caught feelings, and because the guy didn't catch feelings back, now she's going to try to ruin his life. Man, what a rare occurrence that must happen, once in a million years. Man, I can't believe that, bro. Man, what a spectacle. I can't believe that this happened. I'm sure it's never happened ever again.
I regret how I handled that, and if I could go back, I would do things differently. With that being said, all of the sexual activity that we did was consensual. And when I say consensual, I don't mean ambiguous or neutral. I mean it was enthusiastic, encouraging, and ongoing. And I testified to that under oath. To put it simply, the whole thing was a typical one-night stand. Just to be clear, my charge had nothing to do with filming a consent video. It was entirely based on an allegation that I non-consensually assaulted this person. This was shocking to me. It absolutely destroyed my mental health, and for months, I was so confused. What the f am I being charged with? We do know what the reasons were now, and we'll get into those later, but I was charged in February 2021, and these charges were then made public in October 2022 after the accuser contacted
I want to remind you guys, this guy's in fucking prison for this.
My city's local newspaper to run a story about these allegations before that year's McMaster Hoko was to take place. During this time, I felt absolute agony. I stopped making comedy and prank videos because I just, to put it simply, lost my sense of humor, and it's embarrassing to admit, but I felt helpless. Now I want to give you an overview on these things in society. Through legal counsel and many other stories that have been shared with me, I've learned that my case is not unique. False accusations are common and absolutely devastating to the victims. For those that don't know, in Canada, there is no actual evidence required to charge and convict somebody in this type of crime. In most assault case.
It's a lot of places in America too. Pretty much any liberal county, you don't need proof of sexual assault at all. You just need to have a good story, and that's it.
There isn't actually any concrete evidence. It ends up just being one person's word versus another. He said, she said situation. To put it simply, telling the truth is not enough. So as an accused person, the only strategy you have is to find lies, discrepancies, contradictions in the accuser's story. So imagine you or your loved one is being accused despite there being zero evidence. If you or your loved one's defense lawyer cannot question the credibility of the person making these accusations, it will most likely lead to a conviction, and there's nothing you can do about it. As much as this system and laws were put into place with good intentions to help real victims and real survivors, an unfortunate side effect is that they are highly abusable and exploitable.
I'm underneath a firm belief that the Me Too movement has caused more harm than good, to be completely honest. I feel like with how many times women will always take the shortcut to success, I believe they will also abuse the systems that are put in place to protect them. Just like many women decide to take the shortcut of a hard-working life and just immediately go to OnlyFans. I think that if someone were to fuck up in a relationship, they'd rather just see their ex locked up rather than try to move on with their life.
Often take years of time, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the accused person loses their job, loses their reputation, and is...
Burden of proof is on the accuser. Is that not the case here? No. Sexual assault is one of the only things that men can get convicted for with zero proof. That is a real thing. I encourage you guys to look this up. Sexual assault. Men can get convicted of sexual assault. And I want to remind you of how scary this is with zero proof. And the worst thing is you can have a copious amount. You can have a copious amount of proof in your defense. But if the judge does not like you, they can also convict you. It's fucking horrible.
Publicly shamed and potentially even ends up in jail for something they didn't do. But aside from that, from the defendant's standpoint, there are also laws that have been put into place to make it even more difficult to defend yourself. In a normal trial, you can get access to information such as records, messages, emails, etc. However, in assault cases, the police and prosecutors can, and in my case, they did, actively redact any and all information or evidence to prevent you from using it in your defense. So in my case, it was brought to our attention that...
Yeah, it would really suck if you were in a court case and something that would really show how fucking psychotic somebody was completely redacted. And especially in any case ever, when something is redacted, you should understand who is redacting it and why they are redacting it. Because almost every time it's because it doesn't make that person look very good. And so always pay attention to what is being redacted in a court transcript.
There were thousands of communication records that had been redacted by the police. We later found out that the police not only redacted all of this data, but they actually emailed the accuser and said, is there anything specifically that you would like us to redact? And then she replied saying, yes, I would like you to redact all of the emails with my therapist and all of the communications with her alleged boyfriend. And in particular, specific emails that were very, very telling about what actually happened that night. And I will get into them later on. But anyways, back to the evidence. At one point, I remember they gave us about 90 different pages and around 80 of them were completely black.
Why is bro talking through a glory hole? Like, I swear, I only see this in Detroit bathrooms.
Yeah. I'm not a lawyer. I'm actually kind of an idiot. But from what I've been explained by legal counsel, this makes it incredibly hard to defend yourself at trial. For example, if there is evidence that we're bringing that contradicts their version of events, they can change their version of events before trial. So why is it like this now? Well, first of all, obviously, it's intended to protect real survivors from privacy concerns as well as trials being delayed. But what it really is they essentially wanted to get more convictions. After the 2016 acquittal of John Ghomeshi, which led to significant changes to Canadian law, frequently referred to as the Ghomeshi rules. This was implemented via Bill C-51 and subsequent legislation, which are designed to make it easier to secure convictions by altering how evidence regarding a complainant's credibility is handled. These changes were meant to counteract how in the Ghomeshi trial, the defense was able to use contradictory evidence like emails and photos to successfully challenge the credibility of witnesses and get an acquittal. In summary, because of Bill C-51 and the Ghomeshi rules, if there is evidence that shows contradictions in the accuser's statement, it can be discarded. And even if it's not discarded and it is allowed at trial, it has to be given to them and approved, and that gives them the opportunity to prepare for it and potentially alter a story. This is what has been put into effect to get more convictions. The problem is it is potentially at the cost of innocent people going to jail and having their life ruined. Again, I want to preface, I am not a lawyer, but that is my understanding of the law and I'm open to being corrected. Now, right off the bat, from the statements of the accuser alone, we had many examples of inaccuracies, contradictions, and story changes. But once we found out that there was all of this actual evidence that had been intentionally redacted, we became very curious. After several years and over $100,000 just in pretrial application costs, we were able to get a significant portion of the redacted evidence, including emails, text messages, etc. After reviewing them,
Why'd you pull up a random video on this? It's not a random video. Bro, this is 4 days ago. Guys, this is shit that happens every single fucking day. Genuinely. I believe 15% of men at some point in their life get falsely accused of a sexual crime they did not commit. It's scary how common this is, guys. It really is.
It was quite clear that there were multiple strong motives to fabricate these allegations. Now, if we go back to the encounter, remember that the accuser only actually had an issue with my attempt to film a consent video. This is what was so confusing to me because I was there. She initiated sex with me afterwards and we continued having sex. All of this material is available in the official trial transcripts, which you can go over in the description. But even though I deleted whatever was recorded, she had a massive concern on whether or not this video still existed and was worried that it would be circulated online. And we know this because it was mentioned multiple different times. For example, from the April 18th transcript. And what about if he actually took a video? If he did and that got out, that could ruin my entire life. That is from the email she sent her therapist the night of our date. From April 18th, this is at 2:22 p.m. on August the 7th, 2 days after August the 5th. Also, I'm going to the police, maybe not to press charges, but I want to tell them and report it and see if they could do anything about him possibly taking a video or picture of me, end quote. My lawyer asked, you sent this, right? She responds, yes. My lawyer, okay, so again, the primary purpose for going to the police that you are sure you want them to do something about is to see if he took pictures or videos of you. The accuser, yes. Lawyer, and in your mind, you would agree that that would entail them having to at least go to his house, talk to him. Accuser, yes. And taking his phone. Accuser, yes. Okay, and then making sure that there wasn't anything there that you had in a compromised picture or video, right? Accuser, yes. If you want to double check this, this is all in the testimony on April 18th. So when she...
I feel awful for this fucking guy, man. I do. And that's what's so scary is that when a woman encourages you to take a video and then once you're done and like, you know, you have like an argument, then they tell you to delete it because then it's like, are you telling me to delete it because you want to ruin my entire fucking life? Or is it because you actually feel insecure? Right? And that's what's so scary about sex in big 2026. My heart goes out to this guy. Hopefully me reacting to this can get him some help.
Contacted the police. Her concern was to know for sure that the video was truly deleted. However, the only way that the police can search a phone is by obtaining a warrant, and a warrant can only be obtained if there was a crime. From the appeal. Although this factual conclusion was not mandatory, given the evidence, reaching it meant that when the accuser left Mr. Densmore's home, she believed he possessed a compromising video of her on his phone, which increased the probative value of evidence supporting a potential motive to fabricate. As Justice Krawchenko concluded, the accuser's most significant concern was that Mr. Densmore had images or videos of her on his phone. It was essential to consider whether the accuser made the sexual assault allegation partly or fully to prompt police to access his device, especially since the police apparently would not take action unless she made a formal complaint. In regards to her email,
this is why men are eagerly awaiting AI sex robots to come out as quickly as possible because so many men are giving up on relationships.
To the police, she said, I'm unsure if I want to press charges at this time, but I'm deeply concerned as to if he has any photos or videos of me. Following back and forth communication with the police, the accuser eventually went in and gave an official statement nearly 2 months later. She then described a non-consensual encounter that, to be frank, did not happen. I'm going to try and say this as politely as possible. There are multiple points in the accuser's testimony which contradict her police statements and her testimony at trial. I want to share a few major discrepancies and then you can decide for yourself. Now, as a warning, some of the information I'm about to share is graphic and potentially triggering.
Here we go,
but
boys.
I must
I'm
go into these details
Rumble
so that you can see just
Let's
a couple
get it.
of the major discrepancies and inconsistencies in this person's testimony. I am just comparing her version of events compared to her other versions of events and her own testimony. Let's proceed. The accuser testified.
Glad I found my wife 14 years ago. Yeah, me too, man. I found my wife 15 years ago. She's 22 now, man. We're very happy together.
That I aggressively removed her shirt and pulled down her dress. In testimony, she claimed, he started by removing my shirt and pulling down my dress so that my breasts were exposed. Then, in cross-examination, she further insisted, no, he didn't ask me to take it off. He just started to take it off. My lawyer asked again, you're sure about that? To which the accuser confirmed, yes. She made this allegation in testimony and then doubled down on this in cross-examination with my lawyer. However, these new allegations she made in her testimony are totally different from her actual statement to police. To police, she said, so we went to his room and we were like just sitting on his bed and he put on a show on Netflix and then he put his arm around me and then after a few minutes kissed me, which I was okay with. And then he told me like, take off my shirt, which I was comfortable with because I was like wearing a dress underneath it. So in her original story, she claims that I politely requested her to take her shirt off and she did it herself voluntarily and comfortably. However, at trial, she said he started by removing my shirt and pulling down my dress so that my breasts were exposed.
You'd really think that if a bitch were to get caught lying on trial, especially 3 fucking times in a row, something would happen. But the thing is, guys, it don't matter. It don't matter. These bitches will lie and they will ruin your life and they'll get caught breaking the law and nothing happens and it's psychotic.
Then in cross-examination, she further insisted, again, as part of this aggressive encounter she's trying to paint, no, he didn't ask me to take it off. He just started to take it off. My lawyer confirmed, are you sure? She confirmed, yes, that is how it happened. However, my lawyer then confronted her with her own original statement to police, and he reminded her that this is what she said. And then he asked her again what actually happened. She then confirmed her original story, which is that I asked her to take her shirt off, and she did so voluntarily. My lawyer further confirmed, asking, because you're the one that took your shirt off with his request, and that was your way of showing interest or consenting, right? To which she responded, yes. This is a clear example of willingness to intentionally remove and omit participation and change details to suit the false narrative of an aggressive, non-consensual encounter, which, to put it simply, just never happened. Moving on. There were fabricated bruises. The accuser claimed that I aggressively bit her breasts, causing bruising, swelling, and red marks for days after. On August 6th, less than 1 day after our date, the nurse examined her breasts and found 0 bruising, 0 swelling, and 0 red marks. This was totally fabricated.
Imagine that.
From the appeal, in her examination in chief, the accuser described an aggressive sexual assault. It began when Mr. Densmore removed her shirt and pulled down her dress, exposing her breasts. She testified that Mr. Densmore kissed and bit her breasts, which was quite painful, and that the biting left bruises and red marks that lingered for 2 to 3 days after their encounter. He then pushed her onto her back, got on top of her, and penetrated her digitally. Page 34. Though the events described above qualify as a violent sexual assault, Justice Kralchenko flatly rejected the accuser's account, noting how it conflicted with evidence from the nurse who examined the accuser's breasts and found no bite marks or bruising. He also
Imagine that.
Also noted a major inconsistency about digital penetration that was brought out in cross-examination.
What the fuck is digital penetration? Is that e-sex? What are we talking about here?
This is another clear example of fabricating an aggressive, non-consensual encounter, as the accusations of bruises, bite marks, and red swelling for days after were entirely fabricated and confirmed by the nurse. Not days after, but the next.
Oh, fingers? Oh, digital. I was like, what? Did he put his penis through the internet? What the hell are we doing?
day, August 6th.
You would think if you caught a woman lying one time about it, that would be enough. If she's willing to fabricate an entire story that didn't happen factually, that would be enough. But no. Dude. Like, I am so curious how anybody would win a sexual assault case in a liberal county with an activist judge. Let me tell you how they would. They fucking wouldn't.
Next, in her police statement, she said that I got on top of her aggressively.
Not only should activist judges be removed from their jobs, they should be imprisoned for however long they put innocent people on trial or punish them.
And in her description to the Crown, she shared detailed allegations about this without any mention of her participation. In April 17th cross-examination, however, she admitted that after a few minutes of kissing, she swung her legs over my body and straddled me before removing her shirt. Straddling as in mounting me, so sitting on top of my genital area and grinding her groin area directly on mine while sitting upright on top of me. She also said, now, that she smiled and moaned and that I would remark I liked it or moan. Again, this shows that she was an active participant, contrary to all of her previous statements. This is from April 17th, 2024. Next, in a statement to police, she said that she didn't make a single noise or sound besides ow. Then in cross-examination, she admitted to making noises, moaning, and saying, I like it, during various stages of sexual activity to show her consent that she was an active participant.
How is this guy in prison right now? How did this guy lose this trial? How has this guy been in prison for 3 years with all of this opposing evidence? This is insane.
From the appeal. Another inconsistency was the
insane.
accuser's avowal that the vast majority of the encounter took place in near silence. In chief, she was a silent recipient of Mr. Densmore's advances. She testified that, other than providing her with specific directions, the only sound made by either party.
This guy's in prison? Yes. The title of the video is, if you're reading this, I'm in prison. Yes, he is in jail for this.
Was Mr. Densmore.
Doesn't help that he's in Canada. The only places that are as blue as Canada are California and Austin, Texas. It is fucking ridiculous how you can get fucked for life over nothing. It is crazy. Not everyone in Canada is liberal. Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, Canada's real conservative.
Calling her a slut. In closing submissions, trial counsel describes the accuser's initial depiction as an incomprehensible narrative of a silent movie. It also seemed to be incomprehensible to the accuser, who admitted on cross-examination on multiple occasions that they were both.
Texas, I thought they were conservative. Oh, all of Texas is conservative except for Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is the new Los Angeles. Austin, Texas is widely considered a deeply liberal blue enclave and a progressive stronghold within a predominantly Republican state. As the capital city and home to Travis County, it consistently boasts the highest average margin of victory for Democratic candidates in Texas. The city is known for its progressive political leadership policies, often acting as a liberal safe haven, somehow nicknamed the People's Republic of Austin. Yes. And that's why people who are trying to say that Texas is conservative, well, actually it is, besides Austin, Texas, which is the second most liberal city in the entirety of the United States. That is why if you are a man and you are getting in civil court or criminal court for a sexual abuse or domestic violence case in Austin, Texas, you lose. Do you know what percent of protective orders are permitted falsely in Austin, Texas? 82.8%. Kind of a lot. 82.8%. It's kind of a lot.
Moaning, and that she was breathing heavy, and that she uttered the words, "I like that."
Oh, and the worst thing is, it's worse in Canada. It's worse in Canada.
Next, we're going to start talking about some of the therapist statements. Now, I understand that therapy is something that is very personal, it's very private, and a lot of people watching this might be in therapy, so I'm not using this in any way to try to minimize therapy or discredit therapists in general, okay? Just want to start by saying that. There were many issues with the statements to the therapist, including inaccuracies given to the therapist by the accuser, which led to the therapist giving very strong opinions and recommendations, which ended up leading to reshaping what actually happened in the mind of the accuser. In addition to collusion, and if you don't know what collusion is, Google it because it's very bad. The accuser was asked about some of these statements throughout the trial. In this particular one from April 18th, my lawyer, okay, so you're not very truthful with your therapist, are you? The accuser, no, I'm extremely truthful to her. My lawyer, extremely truthful, right? Accuser, yes. My lawyer, that's how you characterize what you're saying to her. The accuser, yes. Here in particular, she made a statement to her therapist where she inaccurately depicted our dates and implied, very dangerously, that I tricked her into coming into my house. I debated whether to send this or not because maybe I'm just being dramatic or stupid or overthinking or reading into something that didn't happen. Or maybe it just brought this whole thing onto myself. But I went on a date tonight. We were supposed to go for a hike and then drinks. But when I showed up to his house, he said it was too late to go for a walk, so we started watching a movie. My lawyer asked, have I read that accurately? The accuser confirms, yes. My lawyer, and that's not what happened, is it? Accuser, not all of the details, no. My lawyer, but that's what you told her happened, right? Accuser, yes. Pause. Inaccuracies like that are super important because they have a severe impact on the therapist's perception of events, which leads to responses from the therapist that, as a therapist's responses would, give massive influence over the accuser. So the therapist receives this amongst other inaccurate statements, continuing from April 18th. So these are your records that she's made about sessions that she's had with you, and the session date is Friday, August the 7th. We spent the session going over her experience and looking at potential stuck points where she blamed herself. In reviewing the evening, it is clear
This is what women do. They give an inaccurate representation of events as they did not occur to a concerned individual, and then that individual feeds them lies and perpetuates their delusion, and then forces the woman into a corner who just wanted to defame someone into pushing a lawsuit because they're feeding into their own delusion. It's horrible, bro. It's fucking horrible.
Accuser attempted to make good decisions, and that he was clearly a predator, skilled in having her make small
Why do people do this? Do you want me to explain to you? Do you want me to explain to you why so many people do this? I'll make this very simple. So there will be two people in a relationship, and one will fall out of love with someone because the other partner is lacking in the other person's opinion, which is completely fine. And so one partner will break up with the other partner because of their inadequacy or their shortcomings. And rather than that partner have a truthful dialogue or monologue within themselves of, okay, well, maybe I should have done more of this, or maybe we just weren't meant to be. They don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to take accountability. They want to say, oh, they broke up with me? Actually, they were fucking awful. Actually, they were terrible, while they're like hiding their tears, right? Because they have to put the blame on the other person. Otherwise, they will have to realize that they were the issue. And they don't want to admit that they were the issue because their entire life they were told that they were a pretty princess. So what do you mean? They could have never fucked up. So they blame the other person for everything, and they escalate it and they escalate it and they escalate it until we get to scenarios like this.
All changes to their plans until she was in his apartment. Have I read that correctly? The accuser confirms, yes. The accuser claims to be extremely truthful to her therapist, giving a completely inaccurate statement about the date to her therapist with a very misleading implication. As a result, the therapist tells her with authority he was clearly a predator, skilled in having her make small changes to their plans until she was in his apartment. She then takes these various responses she gets from her therapist and sends them to her friends and family. Also from April 18th. Yeah, Dr. Therapist said that he seemed very calculated in the way he acted, like he had thought it out, and that I'm not the first. So now she's giving false information to the therapist. Therapist is responding, and then she's taking what the therapist is responding and sending it to her friends using the authority of the therapist.
Fucking insane.
This is one of the many messages that the accuser sent to her friends and family. You can see more in the May 31st closing arguments. Now, during testimony at trial, her statement changed. April 12th, you said the tour was approximately 15 minutes, nothing unusual. What happens after that? She answers, then he suggests that we go for a hike. Oh. And how did you then end up going for a hike? What happens after that? He suggested that we drive to a trail that was close by to his house. So I agreed to that, and we started driving there. So the accuser admitted that actually I suggested we go for a hike, which was the original plan, and then we left the house. Okay, so you described driving towards the escarpment. Accuser, Do you eventually stop somewhere? Accuser, no. He says that it's busy and that we shouldn't bother going on a hike because it's getting dark out. Going a bit down, then what happens? Accuser. So then he suggests going back to his house. Are you able to give us an estimate about how long you were trying to locate a hiking trail? Accuser. Again, not long, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And so, did you agree with his suggestion to go back to his house? Accuser. I did. We then returned to the house after she agreed to return and watch Netflix and chill. But literally the same night as the date, August 5th, she then goes and tells a very different and inaccurate version the same night. So
here we go.
So many implications, opinions, responses, and collusion and influences were made from these inaccurate statements. And what's super concerning about all this, aside from that, she never corrected her therapist by saying, actually, he did suggest going for a hike. And then we actually did leave the house and go to the hiking trail. And we only returned after she agreed to because it was getting dark. Another thing she never acknowledged, the reason it was getting dark is why we came back was because she showed up over 30 minutes late to the date in the first place. So instead of being honest about this or clarifying it or correcting it at all, she then took the therapist's responses, amongst others, and then sent them to her friends and family members. Objectively speaking, this can be considered very problematic because she essentially gave an inaccurate statement to the therapist, which then elicits responses based on these false details. And then instead of correcting them, she uses them as authoritative proof that something happened to her that didn't actually happen. But all of this was under false pretenses from false information. And this was not cleared up and corrected until nearly 4 years later at trial in 2024.
Good God.
At that point, all these communications and the eventual false accusation had already happened. The damage had already been done because amongst all of the other inaccurate statements made to the therapist, this completely colored the therapist's perception of what actually happened, leading to her convincing the accuser, I was a skilled predator, I've done this to multiple people, amongst other things, such as she's not the first, as somebody that's never met me and knows absolutely nothing about me, to intentionally put out false information to someone, and then take what they said in response and use that as an authoritative source to influence friends and family. And this is just a small taste. I highly recommend you go through the April 18th testimony. Everything's in there, and it is shocking.
The Me Too movement caused a parade of women who say, well, I didn't know I was raped until I talked to my friend. And it's like, yeah, well, you told your friend a false version of events, and then they fed into that delusion, right? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I need to understand how women in their 20s and their 30s don't understand when they're being raped. How in the... Huh. Well, geez, he has a gun to my head and he's about to blow my brains out. Oh, is this consensual? Well, sir, I didn't know I was being raped until 8 years later when I talked to my dad. How the f would you not know until you talk to your friend?
Okay, moving on. Next, when giving her original statements to the police, she said that oral sex lasted 5 to 10 minutes, but also that the consent video incident happened about 1 minute into the oral sex, and then our brief conversation about it was approximately 1 minute long. So this timeline would imply that oral sex resumed afterwards to...
I wish I could come in 5 to 10 minutes, man. That would be the dream, bro. I'm like a 40-minute to 50-minute Andy, bro. It just takes way too long.
To fill up the remaining 3 to 8 minutes. At trial on April 12th, she said that after the consent video, she immediately stood up and successfully put her clothes on and claimed that she tried to leave. But then, during cross-examination on April 17th, she acknowledged there could have been more time for oral sex, and it was possible that it continued. My lawyer, okay, but then you'll also agree with me that even after he put his phone away, that you continue to engage with him in oral sex. Accuser, I don't remember. Lawyer, okay, well, let's talk about timing here because you said the oral sex lasts between 5 and 10 minutes, right? Accuser, yes. And the incident with the phone happened about a minute or two into the oral sex, right? Accuser, yes. So therefore, there was more time for oral sex. Accuser, there could have been. Lawyer, okay, it's possible that it continued, right? Accuser, it's possible. I'm not even going to say my version of events, okay? This is her version versus her own version. This completely contradicts her other version of events about getting up, putting her clothes on, and then trying to leave. From the appeal. In chief, April 12th, the accuser testified that once Mr. Densmore took out his phone, she stood up, starting to put her shirt on, looking for her purse. Remember the purse for later. On April 17th, when trial counsel asked the accuser whether she continued to engage with him in oral sex, after his phone was put away, she claimed that she did not remember, in addition to, there could have been time. Upon further questioning on April 18th, the accuser conceded that it was possible that she performed additional fellatio following the phone incident. This is a massive contradiction because if oral sex continued, which is what actually happened, that would mean all of the things she said about getting up, putting her clothes on, and trying to leave was completely fabricated. Look at the transcripts. Moving on. There was further conflicting evidence in regards to her retrieving and putting her shirt on. This is from April 18th, after my lawyer has been asking her about when we had sex. And then I asked where the bathroom was and left the room. Why would you need to ask for the washroom? He's already showed you where it was before you got to his room. Accuser, he did. I guess that was my way of telling him I needed to use the washroom. A little further down. So you'll agree with me that according to you, those are the first words spoken by you or him since you had that little exchange about the phone, correct? Accuser, I believe that he did say something when I was putting on my shirt. Remember that. I don't remember what it was, but I remember kind of awkwardly laughing. My lawyer, okay, so now you remember that, right? But you didn't remember it before. Accuser, I don't remember what he said. I remember not responding to him talking though. Lawyer, well, you did. You said you laughed. Accuser, yes. Lawyer, so that was a response, right? Accuser, okay, yes. So aside from the earlier statements about total silence, which we've gone over, the inaccuracy here is in her earlier version of events, she claimed to have stopped oral sex, stood up, and already had put her shirt on. From April 12th, accuser, I'm still sitting down, but when he went to go put his phone down, he had kind of removed or stopped standing directly in front of me.
We know that we're cooked in a society where someone else's mental illness can be held against us in a court of law. This is insane how retarded this bitch is.
With his feet on both my sides. So I kind of had a way to stand up and create distance between us. So I did that. And then I started putting my shirt back on, looking for my purse. My lawyer, did you indeed put your clothes back on? Accuser, I did. But here on April 18th, aside from the different story about the oral sex continuing, there was also a major discrepancy that actually shows even more credibility towards the oral sex actually continuing, which is what actually happened. Because after penetrative sex had completed, she claimed, I believe that he did say something when I was putting on my shirt. But why would you put your shirt back on if it's already on? If you got up after oral, like you said in your original statements on April 12th, then your shirt would have already been on. Question, did you leave the bedroom? Accuser, no. He came up to me, started kissing me, put his fingers inside of me again, and then kind of quickly pushed me onto the bed, so my stomach was on the bed, and then he lifted my dress up and put his penis in me. In this version, she had already put her shirt and clothes fully back on. There was no shirt removal, but then I came over and forced her on the bed and penetrated her. So on April 12th, the shirt is already on for the penetration. After getting dressed and trying to leave on April 18th, in addition to the oral continuing, the shirt was only put on after the penetrative sex.
I feel awful for this guy, man. I really do. I feel terrible for this guy.
If you're telling the truth about getting up and putting your shirt back on after oral, then the shirt would already be on.
And the worst thing about this is people would rather just dismiss this guy and call him a creep rather than actually hear what he has to say and already click off the video. It's fucking terrible.
These are just a few of the inconsistencies between her statement to the police, her testimony, and her cross-examination. There were many, many more. If I included them all in this video, it would be several hours long. These inconsistencies, inaccuracies, whatever you'd like to call them, are not in comparison to my statements or testimony. All of these things are her word versus her own word. These are not even taking into consideration my testimony, where I disagree with basically everything she's claiming. Even being as polite as possible, there is a alarming.
And the worst thing is that these political commentators on the internet will see a woman's side of events with no proof whatsoever, but just because she said it, then it's the gospel truth, and then will ignore the mountains of evidence the men have against it because they didn't want to read that far into the transcript. And I think this guy understands that as well. It's terrible, bro. They say, well, this one woman said this. Okay, where's the proof or evidence or any of it? None. In fact, all the evidence and proof points against it. Well, it doesn't matter because she said it. It's pathetic.
Pattern of changing stories, contradicting, and even fabricating.
I guarantee you in the next year, we're going to see 5 to 6 more cancellations of a woman falsely accusing someone of sexual assault or rape. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. 100%.
Physical evidence to depict an aggressive encounter that simply didn't happen. There are dozens of instances from this person that clearly lower their credibility, or to be blunt, outright disqualify their credibility. And to put it simply, that is what reasonable doubt is. What started as a concern about a potential video needed a description of a non-consensual, aggressive encounter in order to get a warrant to access my phone. And the accuser herself conceded during cross-examination that many points in her initial statement were not true. I stated this earlier, but it needs to be said again. The accuser was encouraged to go forward by her friends, family, and therapist. The issue, though, is that she told her therapist, as well as her friends and family, not what actually happened. Inaccurate information. And that became the narrative, that I was some kind of assailant. And amongst many other inaccurate statements and downright things that just didn't happen that were shared with the therapist is what led to the therapist encouraging her to go forward with charges. And there's a lot more on that I'm not going to get into in this video because I don't want to get myself in trouble, but it's crazy. Bottom line is this encouragement was based on incomplete, inaccurate, and fabricated information. The pressure then accumulated substantially into several other motives from the appeal. In the months following their encounter, the accuser faced extensive pressure from her friends, family, and therapist to press charges against Mr. Densmore. According to her therapist, Mr. Densmore was a predator who was skilled in making small changes to their plans until she was in his apartment and had likely done this before. The accuser received similar feedback from her friends, mother, and stepfather who, despite never meeting Mr. Densmore, their only idea about me, by the way, is my crazy YouTube videos. So you can imagine what that looked like.
Yeah, can you imagine what a courtroom or someone's family would think if the only interaction they had with you was from their YouTube videos and their tweets? Probably wouldn't be a good look for a lot of people, especially if they're a conservative male. Probably not a good look.
Despite never meeting Mr. Densmore, told her that she needed to press charges against Jack because otherwise she was letting him do that to other girls. This pressure culminated in the accuser admitting to feeling guilty that if she didn't take any legal type of action, she would be responsible for him doing this to other girls.
Insane.
Cross-examination of the accuser, trial transcripts, April 2024. Moving on, in addition to these factors, there was another.
Maybe that's a sign to not tweet or say wild shit while a lawsuit is going on, though. Well, the problem is, in large ambus, a lot of content creators make their career off of saying insane fucking shit, right? So essentially what you're saying is just completely cancel their entire character, completely cancel their entire career the moment anybody says anything at them, right? So like a lot of creators can't stop doing that. This guy has made his career off of doing crazy ass shit. So you say, well, just don't tweet anything or say anything. Like, well, some creators just can't do that, nor should they be expected to. Like, it's like asking an actor, well, just don't take any roles of this caliber while this case is going on. Well, these cases can take years.
Major issue with this person's credibility. In multiple private emails with her therapist, this person admitted to making her entire story up. I legally cannot share the full emails, but it's in her testimony, and she confirmed multiple times that these emails were read correctly, accurately, and that she did say these things. This is all available in cross-examination from April 18th, as well as highlighted in closing arguments on May 31st. This was particularly devastating for me, my friends, and my family to have to sit through. And this is why I'm so shocked that I even had to go to trial in the first place. Because from day one, there was reasonable doubt, and the person to have that reasonable doubt was her. Now, as somebody that has been a victim of assault myself, I know what it's like to feel like you're in denial about what happened to you. And you do have thoughts like, am I making this all up, right? But this is so much more than that. And remember, credibility is essentially the only available thing for the defense to question in a he said, she said trial with no evidence.
I think that is horrifying.
So if changing your story numerous times, potential collusion from therapists and others influencing you, admissions of potentially making your story up, concerns of a video, and other multiple motives to fabricate, as well as direct evidence of fabricating physical evidence, and for lack of better words, a continuous inability to recall basic facts and testify credibly isn't reasonable doubt, then what even is reasonable doubt?
Listen, man, I'll be real. You were cooked the moment that you were a white man walking into a liberal county courtroom. And that's the God's honest truth, man. That is the God's honest truth. Reasonable doubt is whatever the activist judge wants it to be.
Seriously, if this isn't reasonable doubt, then what is? What can anybody in this position do if they somehow can choose to ignore all of that?
They put this guy in prison for 3 years, and yet they'll let out black people who have stabbed people. Literally repeat offenders 24, 28, 72 times over repeat crimes. But this one, we're going to lock this guy up for 3 years because the vibes are off.
Think about if what was happening to me was happening to you or your partner or your brother, your sister, your dad, your friend, and then go over everything. Is there a lack of credibility? And if so, is this lack of credibility enough for reasonable doubt? As you will read in the transcripts, there were multiple motives to fabricate. We concluded that the main one was she thought I still had a photo or video of her, and for whatever reason, thought that I was actually going to post it online. It goes without saying, I would never post, publish, or share a consent video online. That would not only be a gross violation of personal privacy, but it would literally be a crime and career suicide. And
oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm just gonna post this video of us having sex. That way my entire career could be obliterated. These retards are just like, I was just really afraid that he was going to post a video of us having sex, even though it would cost him his entire life and throw him in jail.
There's absolutely no reason for me to ever do that. With that being said, if I'm being very objective and very polite here, I can maybe kind of understand the potential worry that they had that I would. During the trial, this person acknowledged that she was familiar with my videos, and she even described them on April 17th as the subject matter was about drinking, interviewing girls, hitting on girls, despite most of my videos being pranks that had nothing to do with these things. With that being said, the video she was in before, McMaster Hoko 2019, was essentially a 45-minute satire documentary about a massive street party where I'm wearing a crown and shotgunning beers with fans. And in that video, it's a bunch of interviews about drinking, partying, sex, day kills, and that kind of thing. So anecdotally, that was the only experience she had of being in a previous video of mine. Upon arriving at my house, she texted her friends saying, I think it's a joke. I think he's gonna prank me. So it seems like even before meeting me, there was an anxiety that there was somehow a possibility of being pranked. And of course, I had no idea of this. Anyways, from 2017 until 2021, I was known for posting wild party content on my social media that some considered very vulgar and controversial. I've even gone to events like Pride and done interviews with like dozens of naked people, and I always made sure to censor every potential inappropriate thing. With that being said though, I filmed hundreds of these videos where I would go and I would do pranks, interviews, especially interviews at nightclubs, and many people faced severe repercussions just from appearing in my videos. Multiple videos, guys and girls were exposed for cheating on their partners, and this is why I started filming these consent videos when I would do pranks, because essentially, if you film a video...
Yeah, there was a clip of Clavicular making out with somebody's wife the other day on stream. I'm telling you, man, loyalty is the thing of the past. It's honestly so fucking sad, bro. It really is so sad.
Like a prank. You would go up to the person afterwards, be like, hey, my friend's over there, he's filming, this was all a prank. Is it okay if we use this clip for YouTube? And you ask them this because if they say yes, then you're allowed to post it online, right? And if you don't, they could potentially decide later, oh, I don't want that clip online. And then they can report the video and get it taken down. And this can result in you losing your YouTube channel. If you have a brand deal with the video, you can lose thousands of dollars. And also, you're not trying to like humiliate this person online and ruin their lives. So that's why, as pranksters, we go up and we get consent videos. Interview videos are a little different because when you speak into a microphone, it's implied consent, so you don't need to get consent. This is why I would have so many videos of people saying ridiculous things. Then they would end up getting in a lot of trouble and they try to get the videos removed. But it's like, dude, you shouldn't have spoken into a microphone in a video at a nightclub, right? So this happened for years. And this is actually what gave me so much anxiety. And as my channel got bigger and bigger, I started butting heads with the city, with the universities, with the newspapers. And when I would do my Hoko videos, multiple students were suspended from sports teams and even fined thousands of dollars by the government just for appearing in my videos. Literally. I know that this is not what this video is about, but I really want to hammer this point home, guys. On one occasion in particular, I filmed interviews and it went viral. And then it circulated around that town and 3 people ended up getting fired from their jobs. 3 people. Because they said vulgar things into the microphone, which I thought were just harmless, funny things to say. This was in 2019. So as much as I'm just like a young guy having fun, doing funny shit, making videos that were meant to be entertaining and fun, on occasion, there were real consequences for people. And I never wanted that. This is why I would make sure to get consent, because not only do I not want to get things taken down or potentially sued, but also I don't want to ruin people's lives for the sake of content. And at a certain point, I started to feel this every time I was filming prank videos. And
I really don't like public nuisance content. I'm going to be completely real because that is kind of what it feels like, ruining people's lives for content. I believe that if your content comes at the cost of someone else's livelihood or happiness or well-being, you should probably change your content, in my opinion. Unless they're all horrible people, like some guy going up and fucking with Nazis for 30 minutes.
Moved away from pranks and interviews entirely. And I started making self-development content on a completely new channel. I wanted to focus on self-improvement and actually helping people and writing before I moved off of YouTube and into making movies. Because that's my long-term goal, acting and making movies. With all that being said, being featured in a prank or a Hoko video or an interview is still a totally different thing than having an intimate consent video published online. It's never happened before, and it never will. On May 28th, we tried to introduce these as evidence at trial to show clear examples to the judge of what a consent video is, because that's what we were concerned, that this judge would have no idea what we were talking about. My lawyer even showed one of these videos to the prosecutor, the Crown. After seeing it, he fought even harder to make sure that it was not allowed to be introduced as evidence. The judge then decided not to allow us to use any consent videos as evidence at trial. But
what the fuck? The judge said no consent videos allowed? I mean, dude, if a woman can consent before, during, after, a year later, the woman can change their mind. The activist judge can say, we don't want to see the consent videos. Why would anybody ever have sex again? The judge didn't want to see the evidence. This is insane. This is insane. God damn. This is what I mean when I say that courtrooms a lot of the times are just a vibe check. It's insane what these judges can do. This is crazy.
Then, at the same time, in closing arguments and the eventual judgment, both the Crown and the judge dismissed the legitimacy of consent videos being a real thing. The judge even said, I reject the evidence of the accused that he was making a consent video, whatever that really is. And I'm going to be really, really careful with my words here because I want to say this in the most respectful way possible, okay? It's very important to consider if the person making these literally life-altering decisions should be someone who understands these type of things, and in particular, this extremely recent cultural moment that we are all currently going through, especially back in 2020 in a post-Me Too era. I'm not saying this to discredit judges, okay? Most judges are legitimate, brilliant, like...
I'm going to say something to discredit the judge. Guys, my judge thought that me going nuclear on other streamers was a plan for me to kill them with my guns. They thought when I put nuclear drama and I'm going to go nuclear on these streamers meant that I was going to kill them with guns. That's why a lot of these judges don't know what the f they're talking about. It's crazy. Jesus, this is psychotic, bro.
Super geniuses. That's why there's so few judges, because it's incredibly hard to do. So while being as respectful as possible, what I'm saying is that my generation, it's different now. We live in an era of mass surveillance, media, police body cams, consent videos, social media fame, cancel culture, in addition to hookup culture. There's a lot going on, and it is incredibly confusing to navigate this world as a young person, especially as a public figure, which is under increased scrutiny with your reputation and protecting that reputation. Because we all know what happens if somebody gets any kind of accusation made about them. Your career in life is basically over. And even if this disconnect is very minor, it's still a strong enough disconnect to potentially influence situations like this, where an innocent person can get wrongfully convicted. This is even more important if the person making those decisions is not actually required to explain in detail how they even came to these decisions, and whose decision and judgment is then expected to be deferred to with absolute authority. So for me, despite having evidence of these consent videos, they were considered inadmissible at trial, and then at the same time used as an argument to lower my credibility. This was incredibly frustrating. And again, I'm getting a little emotional here. Let me try and dial it back. Filming a consent video is not a crime and is not what I was charged with. However, this person was concerned about a video of them potentially being put online, and then in the evidence, there's a strong motive. They fabricated an assault in order to prevent a video of them potentially, in their mind, being put online, despite the fact that I never have done that and I never would do that. The accuser also texted her friends saying, "I just realized my biggest dream in life is to intern at Saturday Night Live, even though that will never happen because I don't have the skills or connections." She said that right before coming to my house. That's from the April 16th document. But I'll let you read the transcripts and come to your own conclusions. To put it simply, in a case that basically only comes down to credibility, there were multiple statements, changes in details, contradictions, proven fabrications of evidence that should have absolutely been taken into account in terms of credibility. And again, I'm talking about her testimony versus her statement to police, versus messages to her friends, versus emails to her therapist and all the things she admitted in them. This entire time is her word versus her own word. And within her own word, there are major issues. This case is very unique in a sense because there is more evidence that this person is not a credible witness, made a false accusation, fabricated evidence with motive and admission of some of these things, than there is evidence that I even assaulted this person. And there is no evidence because I didn't. There was no assault. It was a consensual encounter. Testifying is terrifying. You're being accused of such a heinous thing and then having to explain intimate details in front of your girlfriend, friends, your family, and reporters who are taking your words out of context and putting you in the front page of the newspaper, making claims about you in front of literally your entire city. In my case, in Hamilton, 500,000 people, plus Toronto newspapers. So we're talking like millions of people. So despite all this pressure, you also have to try and remain calm and not emotional. But at the same time, you literally feel like you're having a heart attack and you have just immense anger about even being in this whole situation. So the whole thing was frustrating, gaslighting, anxiety inducing. It was just fucking terrible. And I'm sure it was terrible for the accuser as well. Okay. But with that being said, that does not make it even remotely okay. What she did was wrong and has had massive consequences for my life that I'm still dealing with years later. I literally felt like my life was taken from me. And even on that day, seeing my girlfriend, my friends, my family collapse to the floor, bawling their eyes out. This pain was and still is truly indescribable.
Man. I mean, everything he's saying is true, guys. This is awful. I feel horrible for this man. You know, and I really want to stress this, guys. This is not a rare occurrence. Shit like this happens every single day. And the odds it happens to one of you guys, I hate to say it, it's honestly not that low. What a horrible, fucked up world we live in. All because people don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation within themselves of maybe they just fucked up.
So in the appeal, you can read my appeal lawyer's technical assessment, why the judge was incorrect. As a layman, he basically allegedly took the date and then he divided it into several different boxes. Okay, so he took the date and he's like, here's the whole thing. Box, 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 box. And then he said, well, she's not credible in this box, or this box, or this box, but I believe her in this box. Again, they're kind of allowed to just use their own discretion and decide whatever they want. But the reason that there was a technical error in this that allowed us to even appeal in the first place is that if somebody while testifying makes...
So they lied 4 times, but this 5th time, I think they're telling the truth. What the fuck?
Major inaccuracies, major contradictions, fabrications, discrepancies in several areas. This should significantly affect their credibility overall. And this was not done. Any lack of credibility, especially a substantial, overwhelming lack of credibility in the majority of areas, is reasonable doubt. And if that isn't considered reasonable doubt, then what is reasonable doubt? It basically makes it impossible for you or your loved ones to defend yourself as an accused person. This is how the law works. This is just how it is. This is why people film consent videos in the first place.
Yep.
The only hope I have at getting my life back is that we can get a retrial to address these inconsistencies. But first, it needs to be approved by the appellate court. They don't.
And you know what the best thing is? There's a lot of cases where if you go to get a retrial, you'll have the same judge and you'll be in the same county. And by the way, judges don't like to change their mind because it makes them look worse if they had to do a retrial and go back on what they originally sentenced. A lot of judges don't want to do that.
Give me notice really when they've decided, and I actually have to turn myself into custody. And then once I'm already in custody, they email my lawyer and tell them the decision they've made. So I have no idea what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. I'm just in this really up place right now, and it's terrifying. With that being said, an appeal is a lot different than a normal trial. I thought it was like, hey, like, look at all this evidence. You know, what happened here? But it's not. An appeal is not to retry the case or review the evidence. The appeal process is for an appeal lawyer to find technical errors in the judge's decision. Yep. With that being said, the way that the laws work in Canada, in these types of trials anyways, trial judges essentially have complete power to make convictions like this.
The way that appeals and trials work in Texas as well is you're not allowed to present new evidence or new findings. It's just they'll re-look over the case and maybe they'll change their mind. It's disgusting.
Therefore, overturning a wrongful conviction is a nearly impossible thing to do. Yep. I'm just going to be honest. Whether the appeal is good or not, the default position of the appellate court is to just defer to the original trial judge's decision, regardless of the evidence. Because again, they're not supposed to retry the evidence. That's what the trial's for. This is what scares me the most. But as unlikely as it is, the possibility of having my life back has been the shred of hope I've been holding on to for years. If I had to go to prison for something I didn't do, it would literally ruin my life. Yep. And I think that's all that needs to be said.
Yep.
Put yourself in my shoes. Think about what is happening to me as if it was happening to you or a loved one.
Yep.
Really think about that. I love my country. I respect the legal system. I think it's right more often than not. But false
Bro's going to move to America after this.
Convictions happen. And when they do, it's absolutely devastating. Since the false accusation,
well, not Austin, Texas or LA, somewhere else,
and wrongful conviction, my life has changed completely. My mental health was destroyed. My relationships destroyed. My finances destroyed. This cost an ungodly amount of money. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's not even talking about lost revenue from my channels being terminated. They literally cut off my income. That is so fucked up. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to take down my Instagram, which is another reason I avoided posting about this. Because if I talk about this, they're going to try and silence me again. I don't want to make this about me, but like, guys, this has been so fucked. Seriously. Like, aside from everything else, in my own city, people hung up photos of me. I've been banned from gyms, co-working spaces, establishments, apps, buildings, restaurants.
Just because one woman lied. One woman lied, and now his entire life is taken away from him. Fucking nuts.
I've received thousands of death threats, hate comments. People have made multiple-hour documentaries defaming me, and I guarantee they don't have the actual transcripts. They never even considered the actual evidence. They're just running with what was posted in newspapers. And this entire time, I've had to remain silent about it. Just trust the system. The system continuously lets me down.
The system's broken. It doesn't work.
I've tried to remain patient, calm, stoic. I work out every day. I read books. I have an amazing girlfriend, family, and support network, which I'm very grateful for. But aside from that, I have essentially become a recluse. And at times, it's felt like I've been hanging on by a thread. And this is totally different than who I actually am. I used to be confident, happy, optimistic, and I was proud of working my ass off for years in construction to become an entrepreneur and have the opportunity to create content online. I was able to entertain millions of people with my comedy videos, and I helped millions of people with my self-improvement content as well. And I had dreams of becoming an actor and filmmaker. And all of that was taken away from me for something that I didn't do. And that's not fair. That's not right. I want to create, I want to provide value to the world, and I don't want sympathy. I don't want to be a victim. And that's the toughest part of my ego. I should be working right now. I should be creating. I should be chasing my dreams and pursuing my goals, my purpose. I should be posting things that provide you value, not talking about this absolute fucking tragedy that I'm barely surviving right now. I should not be stuck on the sidelines waiting around.
True.
I want to live.
Yep.
And the only remote chance I have of ever having a normal life back again is if my appeal is successful. Whether you liked my content or not, whether you like me or not, whether you know anything about me, what was done to me was wrong. It was unjust, and this process has been incredibly painful for me and my family. I imagine it has also been painful at times for the accuser as well. And I'm not trying to minimize her feelings here, but what was a consensual date turned into being concerned about a video being circulated online And then that became something completely different. And at the end of that, I was wrongfully convicted. And I'm not asking you to take what I've said at face value. I'm asking that you review the evidence and transcripts in their entirety and make your own judgment. No one is perfect, and I don't claim to be, but I'm an innocent person, and I deserve to have my life back. I want to end by saying thank you to those that do share your stories, whether you're a victim of assault or a victim of a false accusation. I understand it's a lot to go through, okay? And nothing in this video was meant to offend you or minimize what you've gone through. I also want to say thank you to those who still continue to support me, because you're basically the only reason I'm even here right now. And I'm sorry to all my fans and everybody that it took me so long to make a statement. I hope I can share more with you soon. Thank you, guys.
Man, I feel fucking terrible for this guy. I'm going to put his channel down below, but God, I hope to God his appeal goes well, but I know how these things work in the court justice system. It's not a good look, man. It's just really, really fucked. Maybe there's some way we can make a difference. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll try to reach out to this guy. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you're a man who's been falsely accused, I apologize for the mental torment that you've been through, and see you all in the next video. Rumble.com/Tectone. See you all there.